Mother speaks out for the first time about the killing of her son after he refused to say "Amen" before a meal. A mother who starved her 1-year-old son to death on the orders of a cult leader after he did not say "Amen" before a meal has said. She was paralyzed by fear and was crazy. Speaking for the first time, Ria Ramkissoon, who was 19 when her son died, said she wanted to save her son, but was convinced she would be defying God's will if she did so. The cult's leader, who called herself Queen Antoinette, had told Miss Ramkissoon that her 15-month-old son, Javon Thompson, needed to be starved, as an evil spirit possessed him. Miss Ramkissoon said that she thought she would be guaranteed eternal damnation if she did not follow Antoinette, who cited the Bible as her authority. "It's like it's somebody else's life, but it's not," Miss Ramkissoon said in her first interview since Javon's death. "That is my life, and those are the choices that I've made and the fears that I dealt with, no matter how ridiculous they may be to somebody else." The 19-year-old mother had been living with the woman for several months when her son did not say "Amen" before a meal one morning. That word was one of the few Javon Thompson could not say, at 15 months old, and Antoinette told Miss Ramkissoon not to feed him until he said it. Over the next week, he whimpered and grew sluggish and sallow. It was too late when Antoinette relented and told Miss Ramkissoon to feed the boy. Javon died in his mother's arms. Investigators discovered his body more than a year later. Antoinette is serving a 50-year sentence for second-degree murder. Her adult daughter and another follower are also in prison. Now, living in a faith-based treatment center, Miss Ramkissoon said she knows it's challenging to comprehend how any mother could watch her son starve. She freely uses the word "crazy" to describe her actions. For years, Miss Ramkissoon believed that Javon would be resurrected, as Antoinette had promised. When Miss Ramkissoon pleaded guilty to child abuse resulting in death, she insisted on a provision stating that her plea would be withdrawn if Javon came back to life. Only since her release from custody last year has she fully let go of that belief, allowing her to properly mourn the boy who would have turned 6 on Saturday. None of that had to happen to him. He's in a house surrounded by people doing this to him, Miss Ramkissoon said. "I felt like if anyone had a responsibility to him there, it was me, and I gave that up." So, yeah, that's a difficult thing, to die and to suffer in that kind of way. That's not easy to have to swallow. I'm very much responsible for that as much as anybody else. Miss Ramkissoon said she joined the cult after she became disillusioned with traditional churches in Baltimore, where she lived after moving from her native Trinidad at the age of 7. She got pregnant around her 18th birthday with her boyfriend, who ended up in jail. She claims that during her pregnancy her stepfather tried to choke her. Members of Antoinette's group took turns recruiting Miss Ramkissoon. Though they were stingy with details about the arrangement, she was desperate, and their offer began to sound attractive. "I had an extreme fear that Javon would get taken away if I didn't know what I was doing," she said. "That's kind of when I took things into my own hands." In April 2006, Ramkissoon asked her mother to drive her and Javon to a park. She packed him a diaper bag with a few outfits and other supplies. For herself, she brought nothing but the clothes she wore. Cult members met them and drove them to their homes. Miss Ramkissoon stopped answering her cell phone, then turned it off and handed it over to Antoinette, who forbade her followers from going to the doctor. Antoinette seemed wary of Javon from the beginning, planting the seeds of doubt in Miss Ramkissoon's mind. Out of the blue, she would say, "There's something wrong with that child." After he refused to say "Amen," she told Javon that he had a spirit of rebellion inside him, and that only fasting could exorcise it. When Javon died in late 2006 or early 2007, Antoinette told her followers to pray for his resurrection. They packed the body into a suitcase. Miss Ramkissoon sprayed it with disinfectant and stuffed the suitcase with fabric softener sheets to mask the odor. Miss Ramkissoon said she now realizes that Javon died because of her own decisions, not because of God's will. "It is difficult," she said, "because I don't think the weight of what was lost is fully settled." Ramkissoon said she's often asked how she can still believe in God, but she credits her faith and the fellowship she's found at the treatment center, allowing her to take control of her life. "I may have approached it the wrong way. It doesn't mean that God isn't true and that the community, love, and family don't exist in the right way." Several local citizens have raised questions about the sentencing of Ria Ramkissoon, mother of 16-month-old Javon Thompson, who died of dehydration and starvation while living with a cult in West Baltimore. To understand her sentence, it is essential to understand the facts that formed the basis for Ms. Ramkissoon's guilty plea and the trial of her co-defendants. In 2006, Ms. Ramkissoon was persuaded by a friend to join a household run by a woman who called herself Queen Antoinette. Ms. Ramkissoon was told that this was a Christian household where she could devote herself to caring for her child, Javon, then 7 months old. Tony Sloan ran her household under a strict set of rules, which she said were based on biblical principles. As time passed, the regulations multiplied and became more restrictive. Eventually, all members were required to give up their possessions, including identification and contact with old friends and family. The children were not permitted to attend school, and the women were expected to stay home and care for the children. Except for Queen Antoinette, her daughter Trevia Williams, Princess Trevia, and her chief aide, Marcus Cobbs, Prince Marcus, no one could leave the house unless another member accompanied them. Queen Antoinette claimed that God spoke directly to her. Failure to follow her rules would result in damnation. One morning in early 2007, Javon, then 16 months, refused to say Amen after the blessing before breakfast. Queen Antoinette told the others that Javon possessed a spirit of rebellion, and that God told her that the way to purge Javon of this evil spirit was to deprive him of food and water until he said Amen. As Javon cried from hunger, Queen Antoinette warned the household members not to feed him. Ms. Ramkissoon was so distraught that Queen Antoinette ordered Ms. Williams to take control of Javon. She did not want Ms. Ramkissoon to disobey her order. When it became clear that Javon was on the verge of death, he was returned to his mother, and he died in her arms. After Javon's death, Queen Antoinette ordered everyone to kneel and pray for his resurrection. She said that God would bring Javon back to life, but only if they had enough faith. As the days passed and Javon's body began to decompose, the only person who remained by his body was his mother. When Ms. Ramkissoon wondered why Javon had not risen from the dead, Queen Antoinette told her she wasn't a good enough mother and didn't have enough faith. Ms. Ramkissoon believed her. The cult members moved to Philadelphia, where Javon's body was placed in a suitcase inside a locked shed. It was left there when the group moved again to New York. As of the trial date, Ms. Ramkissoon still believed that Javon could be resurrected. Ms. Ramkissoon received a sentence of 20 years, with all but the time she had already served suspended, and 5 years of probation. Under her plea agreement, she testified at the trial of Queen Antoinette, Trevia Williams, and Marcus Cobbs, helping to secure convictions of all three on charges of second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. Also, under the agreement, Ms. Ramkissoon was immediately driven to a residential treatment facility, where she will be held indefinitely. At Ms. Ramkissoon's insistence, the court agreed that if Javon is resurrected, she can return to court and withdraw her guilty plea. Why did I agree to let Ms. Ramkissoon withdraw her guilty plea if Javon is resurrected? It would be legally appropriate if Ms. Ramkissoon's religious beliefs were correct and Javon resurrected. That said, I do not share Ms. Ramkissoon's religious beliefs, and the likelihood of Javon's resurrection in my lifetime is too remote to be a concern. I carefully specified on the record that this condition involved the resurrection of Javon's body, not reincarnation into another body. Why did Ms. Ramkissoon receive probation? There are several reasons why one co-defendant gets a more lenient sentence than the others, several of which applied to Ms. Ramkissoon's case. First, it was clear to everyone that Queen Antoinette was the central and most culpable defendant in this case. She was the leader of the cult. She issued the order to withhold food and water from Javon. She warned the others not to feed Javon and removed Javon from Ms. Ramkissoon's control. Our priority was to convict Queen Antoinette of child abuse and murder and to secure a substantial prison term in her case. To do that, it was necessary to obtain eyewitness testimony, and Ms. Ramkissoon was willing to tell the truth. Second, and equally important, I believe justice was best served by placing Ms. Ramkissoon in a residential treatment facility rather than prison. It was clear to everyone who interviewed Ms. Ramkissoon that she had been indoctrinated through classic brainwashing techniques into a cult. She had no malice or ill will toward Javon. Quite the contrary, she believed Queen Antoinette acted in his best interests. Nonetheless, she was extremely distraught when Javon began showing signs of distress. After Javon's death, Ms. Ramkissoon spent weeks by his decomposing body, praying for his resurrection. This was not an individual acting out of a classic criminal intent, e.g., malice, anger, desire for revenge or gain, but rather a mother who has and will suffer anguish over the result of her inaction. It should be noted that the main reason Ms. Ramkissoon was not found not criminally responsible is because her delusions were religious and were shared by other people. Therefore, they could not be classified as a mental disorder. However, Ms. Ramkissoon was not simply released to freedom. A condition of her probation is that she remains in and successfully completes a long-term inpatient residential treatment program. Should she leave the facility against medical advice, fail to complete the program, or violate any other condition of her probation, Ms. Ramkissoon could be incarcerated for almost 20 years. As a prosecutor, my ethical obligation is to do justice, not to secure a conviction or the maximum possible sentence. In the case of Ria Ramkissoon, the guilty plea and conviction were just. In other circumstances, I would make different sentencing recommendations. When I prosecuted Mark Castillo for drowning his 3 children, I asked for and received a sentence of 3 consecutive life terms without parole, the harshest sentence the defendant could have received. Justice requires a meticulous review of the facts and evidence, the role of each defendant, and the wishes of the family members. That is what I did in this case. I respect that not everyone will agree with me, but I would ask those who disagree to take a careful look at the factors I considered before rushing to judgment. Editor's note: on May 18th, Queen Antoinette was sentenced to 50 years incarceration. Trevia Williams and Marcus Cobbs were sentenced to 50 years incarceration, with all but 15 years suspended. 3 accused cult members, convicted of starving a toddler to death in the name of religion, were sentenced Tuesday to a collective 150 years in prison. Toni Sloan, 41, who claimed God had christened her Queen Antoinette, received a 50-year sentence composed of 2 consecutive 25-year terms, one for second-degree murder and the other for first-degree child abuse. Sloan said she was not sorry for the toddler's death. Trevia Williams, 22, and Marcus Cobbs, 23, received the same sentence, with all but 15 years suspended for each. There can still be hope for them, said Baltimore Circuit Judge Timothy J. Dorey. He did not express the same optimism for Sloan, who had issued the order in 2006 to starve the 16-month-old boy until he said, "Amen," according to prosecutors. "This crime is somewhat mystifying to me," Dorey said at sentencing. "What that means is you didn't care, and also you knew you didn't care and just let it happen. Each of you, with varying degrees of responsibility, stood by and watched that child die a horrible death." The judge had dismissed first-degree murder charges against the 3 during the trial, saying that he did not believe that they had intended to kill the boy. During the trial, Sloan was characterized as the head of the group, a cult leader who lured young people into her home and controlled the most minute aspects of their lives through her self-styled religion, down to what colors they wore and whether they were allowed to feed their sons. You were a collector of people, a collector of disaffected children, a collector of lost souls, Dory said to Sloan. You are the person most responsible. According to court testimony and prosecutor statements, Sloan took in at least a half-dozen young people, including her co-defendants, over several months in 2006, convincing them that they would suffer eternal damnation if they failed to follow her rules. Sloan couldn't tolerate any dissent or disobedience, not even from a 16-month-old child, said Prosecutor Julie Drake, chief of the Baltimore State's Attorney's Family Violence Division, who tried the case alongside Assistant State's Attorney Patricia McLean. Sloan maintained her innocence Tuesday. I still believe, and I still stand firm, that I'm not guilty, and the truth will eventually come out, however long it takes, Sloan said in court. Among the group living with Sloan in 2006 was 19-year-old Ria Ramkissoon. She had moved in with her infant son, Javon Thompson, partly because she wasn't getting along with her stepfather at home. Things were fine at first, but when Javon stopped repeating his mother's "Amen" after prayers, Sloan ordered food and water withheld from him until he said it. He never did. His body wasted away, and he died within a week. Ramkissoon testified that she had agreed to let Javon go hungry because she thought it would rid him of a spirit of rebellion she took as an actual entity. After his death, she was convinced that she could resurrect him if only she had enough faith. Ramkissoon is now in a long-term residential treatment facility, receiving psychiatric care. She had pleaded guilty to child abuse resulting in death and was sentenced last month to a 20-year term, with the prison time commuted to the 19 months she had already served. As part of her plea agreement, prosecutors agreed to drop the charges against her if her son came back to life. It was clear to everyone who interviewed Ms. Ramkissoon that she had been indoctrinated through classic brainwashing techniques into a cult, Drake said in a statement released Tuesday to counter criticism that the sentence was too lenient. She had no malice or ill will toward Javon. Quite the contrary, she believed Queen Antoinette was acting in his best interests, Drake wrote. Ramkissoon testified during the week-long trial of her 3 co-defendants, who represented themselves and were convicted in early March. None of the defendants has shown remorse for Javon's death or accepted responsibility. Williams, Sloan's biological daughter, mumbled something about not trusting the court when asked if she wanted to make a statement. She was described as the enforcer of Sloan's rules. The third defendant, Cobbs, told the court that he had nothing to say. According to trial testimony, he had planned to help Javon once but had been talked out of it. Cobbs tried to cover up the boy's death, the jury found. Javon's body was found in 2008 in a Pennsylvania shed, folded into a green roller bag suitcase. In addition to their 15-year prison sentences, Cobbs and Williams will be placed on probation after their release and ordered to stay away from children who are not relatives and to avoid contact with their co-defendants. That means that Williams will be barred from seeing her mother. Each defendant will be eligible for parole after serving half of their term. Javon's grandmother, Sita Newton, who had fought to save him from the moment her daughter took him away, read a statement in court. I look at Javon's picture every day, and I realize that I'm never, ever going to hold him, never see him, never watch him grow up, never give him love again, Newton said. I want him back, and it hurts me every day. Turning to Sloan, she decried her use of religion to manipulate young people. You sneak up on them when their families are not looking, Newton said. The most disgusting part of this is that you do it in the name of God. A woman who starved her 1-year-old son to death at the behest of a religious cult leader was given a sentence Wednesday that won't require her to serve any more jail time. Ria Ramkissoon, 23, pleaded guilty last year to child abuse resulting in the death of Javon Thompson. She admitted denying food and water to the 16-month-old child when he did not say "Amen" before a meal. Javon wasted away over a week before his heart stopped beating. Baltimore Circuit Judge Timothy J. Dorey suspended the balance of Ramkissoon's 20-year sentence and ordered her to report to a residential treatment facility for young women. The treatment program includes Bible study, and Ramkissoon will be required to complete the program, which doesn't have a specified length before she can live independently. Ramkissoon, who has been in jail since her August 2008 arrest, also was given 5 years of probation. At the time of Javon's death, Ramkissoon was living with a small religious cult led by a woman who calls herself Queen Antoinette. She told Ramkissoon that the child had a spirit of rebellion inside him, and that denying him food would cure him. After Javon died in late 2006 or early 2007, Antoinette told her followers to pray for his resurrection, and Ramkissoon spent weeks with her son's body. She testified in February at Antoinette's trial that she still believes her son will be resurrected, and her plea deal contained an extraordinary provision. If Javon comes back to life, the plea will be withdrawn. A jury convicted Antoinette, her daughter Trevia Williams, and another follower, Marcus A. Cobbs, of second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. They face 60 years in prison when they are sentenced next month. Ramkissoon appeared more relaxed Wednesday than when she testified at trial. Her attorney, Stephen D. Silverman, said Ramkissoon felt intimidated by Antoinette, who acted as her attorney and cross-examined Ramkissoon extensively. Before the hearing began on Wednesday, Ramkissoon smiled, gestured, and made faces at her mother, Sita Kadan Newton. The defendants represented themselves in the week-long trial, and witnesses told stories of strict religious rules, fears about demonic possession, and the attempted resurrection of a toddler named Javon Thompson. But nothing, not even justice, in this case, will bring Javon back, his grandmother, Sita Newton, said Tuesday on the courthouse steps, a photo of Javon pinned to her collar. "I wish I could just hold Javon and hug him." The boy's mummified remains were discovered in April 2008, about 15 months after he died in a Baltimore apartment. His body was shrouded in sheets and packed away among mothballs and dryer cloths inside a green suitcase that was left in a Pennsylvania shed. It was part of an odd cover-up, prosecutors said, that also involved committing a woman to a mental facility and leading the boy's mother to believe she could bring her dead child back through faith, all under the direction of the Queen, whose weapon was the fear of eternal damnation. There is a reason she calls herself Queen Antoinette, Baltimore City Assistant State's Attorney Julie Drake, chief of the Felony Family Violence Division, said during closing arguments Tuesday. Queens give orders, and she expected to be obeyed. Antoinette's former lover, Stephen Bynum, described her as a bright, chatty woman who gave good business advice. He helped her financially and found her a place to live soon after they met in Baltimore in 2004. By 2005, he had also helped her establish a business, at least on paper, called One Mind Ministries. In a letter trying to establish nonprofit status for the organization, Antoinette described herself as a chosen daughter of the highest God and a queen of Jesus Christ, Drake said in court. The mother of 4 ran her household with strict rules developed from her interpretations of the Bible. Members were to wear certain colors, tan, white, or blue, travel in pairs, and homeschool the youngest children. Those who couldn't abide by the rules couldn't stay. In early 2006, her daughter, Williams, Princess Trivia, became friends with several troubled young Baltimore women and invited them to live in her home, provided they abided by Antoinette's rules. Sisters Danielle and Tiffany Smith, who had a young son named Christian, moved in, followed by Christian's father, Marcus Cobbs. Ria Ramkissoon, now 23, and her son, Javon, came in April of that year. Ramkissoon had converted to Christianity from Hinduism in middle school, and she wanted to practice a religious life, spend more time with her son, and leave her mother's house where she didn't get along with her stepfather. "I didn't want any of them there," Antoinette said during her closing arguments, but she added, "I felt as though I was supposed to help because they came to me." Witnesses said things were peaceful in the house for a time, and there was no physical violence, though Antoinette could have a sharp tongue. However, Tiffany Smith caused trouble and was punished for not following the rules. Then, in late 2006, or early 2007, Javon stopped playfully repeating his version of the word "Amen" when his mother cued him after prayer, Ramkissoon said. That's when Antoinette said he shouldn't eat until he complied, a punishment meant to rid him of a spirit of rebellion. Ramkissoon took the term literally and believed her son was demonically possessed. Days passed. His skin discolored, his eyes sunk in, his lips got chapped. Assistant State's Attorney Patricia McLean told the jury during her closing arguments Tuesday. Witnesses testified that Javon moaned and grew thinner. He spat up a mysterious black fluid and lost the energy to crawl, and no one did anything to help him. Witnesses said Cobbs tried early on but changed his mind after a conversation with Antoinette. Williams allegedly took physical control of the boy, at least at night while the group slept. "Nobody did anything," Drake said. "That's the basis of the crime." After Javon died, Antoinette blamed Ramkissoon, saying she was a bad mother. Antoinette told her to nurture him back to life and condemned her when she couldn't, witnesses said. Ramkissoon continued to care for the dead boy for weeks, singing to him and reading him stories. After nearly being found out by their landlord, the group packed up and moved, bringing Javon's body with them. They abandoned the corpse in its suitcase in Pennsylvania and moved to New York City, where Cobbs had Danielle Smith committed to keep her from confessing to neighbors, according to testimony. She eventually convinced a social worker that her story was true, and the scheme began to unravel. Members of the group were arrested in August 2008. During closing arguments Tuesday, Antoinette said she had rules but never forced compliance. She complained about the media attention and the prosecution's allegations. Deliberations began shortly before 1 p.m., and a verdict was returned by 4 p.m., leaving 2 hours of consideration after accounting for the lunch break. Jurors found the defendants guilty of first-degree child abuse, resulting in death and second-degree murder. Cobbs was also convicted of being an accessory after the fact for participating in the cover-up. He measured Javon's body for the suitcase and burned the boy's bed. A first-degree murder charge against Antoinette was dropped Monday by Baltimore. Circuit Judge Timothy J. Dorey, prosecutors said. Dorey did not immediately return a message seeking clarification. The defendants kept stony faces as their fate was announced after Dorey's directions to show no emotion. The judge also ordered medical evaluations and background reports for the defendants in preparation for sentencing. The women had earlier refused specific psychological assessment. Drake said she was relieved by the verdict, though she bristled at the idea that Antoinette felt victimized. The only victims here were Javon and his grandmother, Drake said. Newton stood beside her, a picture of her daughter, Javon's mother, in her pocket. Ramkissoon, who was about 10 in the photo, was a lovely young girl with clear eyes. Ramkissoon has pleaded guilty to child abuse resulting in death and is awaiting sentencing, which is expected to be a 20-year suspended term and some residential counseling. She's quiet now and withdrawn, not the vibrant daughter Newton remembers. She still believes her son will come back to life if she has enough faith. "It's going to take years for Ria to get back to the child I know," Newton said. "It's going to be a long, long time." Testifying against alleged cult members, the woman also believes the boy will be resurrected. The mother of a dead child testified Wednesday that she agreed to starve her toddler son, who refused to say "Amen," to rid him of a demonic spirit that was potentially placed there when her mother offered the boy up to the devil. Ria Ramkissoon, 23, also said she has faith that God will resurrect her son, Javon Thompson, and she's not afraid to say so, even if it makes her sound crazy. "I don't have a problem with sounding crazy in court," she said bluntly as former acquaintances poked each other in the audience and rolled their eyes. Ramkissoon has pleaded guilty to child abuse resulting in death and expects to receive a 20-year suspended sentence along with inpatient counseling and 5 years of probation. Her official sentencing has been repeatedly postponed in anticipation of her testimony Wednesday against 3 other defendants who are accused of running a religious cult and are charged with murder in 16-month-old Javon's death. On trial in Baltimore City Circuit Court are accused cult leader Queen Antoinette, 41, her daughter Trevia Williams, 22, and Marcus Cobbs, 23. According to testimony, Antoinette was developing a religious organization called One Mind Ministries and had plans to open a shelter for kids. Witnesses have said that she ran a religious household that required its members to read the Bible, travel outside in pairs for safety, and wear certain colors, namely blue, white, and khaki. Ramkissoon learned about the house through a childhood friend who said she could live there and spend more time with her son. At the time, Ramkissoon felt the boy was bonding more with her mother, his grandmother, than with her because she was in community college and away for much of the day. She also said she was uncomfortable at home, where she lived with her younger brother, her mother, Sita Newton, and her stepfather, with whom she had a difficult relationship. When a juror asked Ramkissoon, via a note handed to the judge, why she trusted strangers with her infant child over her mother, she said, "If you think your son is being offered to the devil by your mother, who you go to." Ramkissoon, who converted from Hinduism to Christianity in middle school, said she found her mother and stepfather holding the boy up to the sun one evening. They said they were showing him God's creation, she testified, but she believed they were offering him up to the devil. The boy later died while living in Antoinette's household because she allegedly ordered that he be deprived of food until he said "Amen" after prayers. In an interview after the morning testimony, Ramkissoon's mother said she never offered her grandchild to the devil and wasn't even holding him that evening. She said she hopes her daughter, who sounded lucid and confident on the stand, gets counseling. "She comes and goes. Her mood comes and goes. She's confused sometimes. But altogether, she's a brilliant girl," Newton said. A woman who pleaded guilty to starving her toddler son to death while part of a religious cult will be released from the Baltimore jail within a matter of weeks or even days, her attorney said Tuesday. According to attorneys on both sides, Ria Ramkissoon, 22, will be enrolled in a counseling program on a farm in rural northeast Maryland. The program, which has no fences or guards, was chosen for her by a city prosecutor who arranges alternative sentencing options. It's not a correctional facility. It's a place for her to get reacclimated. She'll be part of a community and have a job and responsibilities, said Stephen D. Silverman, Ramkissoon's attorney. She's very excited about the opportunity to do something positive. Ramkissoon pleaded guilty in March to child abuse resulting in death. Authorities said she was part of a cult that denied food and water to 1-year-old Javon Thompson because the boy did not say "Amen" after meals. After the boy died, the cult leader, Queen Antoinette, told her followers to pray for his resurrection, according to police and prosecutors. The cult members ultimately placed Javon's body in a suitcase and hid it behind a house in Philadelphia, where police found it in 2008, more than a year after his death, authorities said. Silverman has argued that the cult brainwashed Ramkissoon and was not responsible for her son's death. Her plea deal includes a provision allowing her to withdraw the plea if Javon is resurrected. Ramkissoon was scheduled to be sentenced on Tuesday, but the sentencing was delayed until November because the other 4 cult members have yet to go on trial. She agreed to testify against them as part of her plea deal. The agreement calls for Ramkissoon to receive a 20-year suspended sentence and 5 years of probation. The maximum sentence for child abuse resulting in death is 30 years, and defendants typically receive between 12 and 20 years, according to Maryland sentencing guidelines. But prosecutors have shown little zeal in pursuing punishment for Ramkissoon, a native of Trinidad with no previous criminal history. Her mother has said she was naive and easily influenced when she was recruited into the cult as an unwed teenage mother. Ramkissoon has received no mental health counseling while in the city jail, and the program will allow her to get the help she needs, Silverman said. He said she would remain there as long as counselors deem it necessary. The other 4 cult members, Antoinette, 41, Trevia Williams, 21, Marcus A. Cobbs, 22, and Stephen L. Bynum, 43, are scheduled for trial in October on charges including first-degree murder. Antoinette and Williams have not retained lawyers and plan to represent themselves. Accepting a plea bargain that her attorney described as unprecedented in American jurisprudence, a 22-year-old Maryland woman yesterday agreed to cooperate in the prosecution of other defendants in the death of her son under the condition that charges against her be dropped if the child rises from the dead. It also is specifically noted, Baltimore Circuit Court Judge Timothy Dorey said in court as he described the plea bargain to the boy's mother, that if the victim in this case, Javon Thompson, is resurrected, as you still hold some hope, he will be, you may withdraw the plea, and the charges will be null prost withdrawn against you. The boy's mother, Ria Ramkissoon, is shaping up as prosecutor's star witness against a 40-year-old Baltimore woman named Queen Antoinette. Prosecutors allege that Queen Antoinette led a small cult called One Mind Ministries, based in a West Baltimore row house. In early 2007, prosecutors say, Queen Antoinette instructed Ramkissoon and others to deprive Javon of food and water because he didn't say Amen before breakfast. Queen Antoinette has been charged with first-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death, as have 3 of her alleged followers. Any trial is expected to be at least 2 months away. In yesterday's hearing, prosecutors said they would drop murder charges against Ramkissoon. She pleaded guilty to child abuse resulting in death. According to yesterday's agreement, suppose she testifies truthfully against the other defendants. In that case, prosecutors will recommend that she be released from jail, placed on probation, and provided treatment that could include a process of deprogramming. A spokeswoman for the Baltimore State's Attorney's Office said that in recent weeks, as prosecutors and Ramkissoon's attorney discussed the plea bargain, prosecutors made it clear that Ramkissoon could not escape her obligations if she asserted that Javon came back as anything other than himself. This would need to be a Jesus-like resurrection, Margaret Burns, the spokeswoman, said after the hearing. It cannot be a reincarnation in another object or animal. Ramkissoon, listed in court records as 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, was led into court wearing jeans, a bright yellow shirt, leg chains, and handcuffs. She displayed little emotion, walking past friends and relatives without appearing to make any prolonged eye contact. Her mother sobbed in her seat, both before the plea and while prosecutors read aloud the facts as they saw them. Prosecutors said, Queen Antoinette concluded, that Javon had developed a spirit of rebellion and should not be given food or water for at least 2 days. Fearing that his mother, Ramkissoon, might break down and feed the child, Queen Antoinette ordered that the child be given to another group member, prosecutors alleged yesterday. After Javon died, he was placed on a couch while everyone knelt and prayed. Ramkissoon also danced around her son, prosecutors said. The boy's body was later moved to a back room. At one point, 2 members measured Jason's body and bought a suitcase. Members believed that if the body could travel with them, it could be resurrected later, said Stephen Silverman, Ramkissoon's attorney. The group members left the suitcase with a man they had befriended. Police eventually discovered it in his shed in Philadelphia. Also, during yesterday's hearing, Queen Antoinette and another defendant, Trevia Williams, indicated that they had attorneys but didn't say who they were. Queen Antoinette said little during the hearing and talked quietly, with courtroom security officials during breaks.